Doctor?
These are sound trademarks, protected by international laws. Starting from May 2014, they're also protected by the Chinese government. A law expert in Shanghai who has helped revise the trademark law told us that the revision process had lasted for nearly 10 years. For the first several years, vocal trademarks were not included. Only in the past 2 or 3 years was the topic raised and finally put into the law. So what forced the change?
进入 WTO 与国际接轨之后啊，
Vocal trademarks are legal in many Western countries. After we joined the WTO, we need to be in compliance. Also, for international companies that want to enter China, especially those with legal vocal trademarks in their own countries, they will need the same sort of registration and protection in China.
这个商标法里头没有声音商标这一个类型。
MGM's famous Lines Raw is a perfect example because it exactly matches the sound in Mr. Chin's database. China also has famous audio trademarks, which were just put under the legal protection. The most famous one is for clothing maker Heng Yuanxiang.
大家可以把 万事万物的声音注册成商标。
People can register all kinds of sounds as their vocal trademarks. This will bring an unprecedented market opportunity to China.
一个前所未有的一个商业机会。
So Mr. Chin and his team established an audio e-commerce platform called VOCC. All the sounds from the database collected by Mr. Chin over the past 3 decades are put online. Other than that, potential buyers can list their requirements on the website. If interested, audio suppliers could create sound demos, and the buyers then picks the one they like and pay for it. VOCC takes a 20% commission from the transaction. There are many types of production in the sound industry: dubbing, background music, popular songs, and so on. Audio trademarks are just one part of it. What's more, many other similar sound suppliers have been established in the industry for some time. So why did Mr. Chin wait until Chinese law was changed before launching his sound e-commerce platform?
可以作为生意、小生意做的事情。
There are many intellectual properties in the industry. Even a cell phone ringtone can generate profits.
那么我们真正
But what we really value is the huge market after the legislation of vocal trademarks. Only that deserves our database. We have sharpened our knife for 30 years, waiting for the pig to grow up.
我们把这个刀磨了30年，就等着这个猪出来。
Mr. Chin does have a point. The combination of sound with pictures makes any presentation much more memorable.
但是声音的话呢，大概能够达到
People can remember around 10% of what they have read and around 20% of what they have heard. They can remember 30% to 50% of things if they have both read and heard them. The difference is remarkable.
那它就可以可能达到30%到50%了。企业，它就要把它的品牌通过视觉、听觉。
A company should use the combination of picture and sound to better fix itself in the memory of an audience. The audio trademark has to match the visual trademark to take advantage of all the senses.
对应，这样才是一个完整的感觉系统。
At the moment, purchases on the VOCC website are still mostly personal. This accounts for only 10% of the company's total revenue. The design and production of audio trademarks only accounts for around 20%. This part is still running offline since the understanding of the idea is still very weak in China. For now, the sales staff at VOCC are having to promote the idea to potential clients one by one.
去
There are some companies that have heard us out, but eventually they refused us. The reason is just they don't need new vocal trademarks now. They think their current picture and word trademarks are good enough.
Most of the clients that decline the vocal trademark services are national SOEs. Many who say yes, on the other hand, are local. Another 30% of the company's revenue comes mostly from Anhui companies who have asked the VOCC platform to find suitable music or sound studio effects for them. This part of business is also mostly done offline, but the platform now hopes to persuade its clients to put it online. The remaining 40% of revenue comes from projects assigned by the local government. The most recent project is to find people to dub the voices of famous historical figures who were born in Anhui.
Recently, we did see certain regulations and laws that do protect right now trademarking voices and sounds. Do you think that is a potential commercialization opportunity for Qinjie?
I think the new legislation will definitely increase the market awareness for sound trademark, as well as provide people the option to register for one. So if more companies start to register for the sound trademark, it will definitely drive more traffic to VOCC and increase the trading activities on it. But whether or not the business will actually fly, I think it depends on how people and companies actually view the value of sound trademark. We've done a study that shows companies' brands and trademarks are indeed important and valuable company intangible assets, right? And they do have a positive impact on the company's valuation in the capital markets. But I think at present, most corporate managers still view trademark as sort of a complement, right, to the more traditional visual trademark.
Here in China, at least.
Here in China, right? So they see that as an optional investment as opposed to a necessity, right? So to the extent that market momentum hasn't built up yet, it's really hard to tell whether or not VOCC's business will fly. And also there's concerns about enforceability of the new legislation. I mean, IP protection is a huge issue nowadays in China. So, I'm sure a lot of corporate managers have concerns about that too.
And something that he wants to do is sort of create this sound exchange market, both an offline as well as an online component. And the online component he already has, which is called VOCC. The question is, does it make sense to have this sort of sound exchange right now? What does it look like once these things are set up, especially since this country is, there's a lot of free access to sound and voices. So if you do want to create this sound exchange market, is the demand actually there?
Well, I think the sound exchange that Mr. Qin has in mind, or the VOCC as you mentioned, is essentially a platform for people to trade sound. I think the business model is actually very similar to Taobao or eBay, except that VOCC trades intangible goods, which is the sound, whereas Taobao and eBay sells physical assets, right, trades physical assets. Now, the most important success factors behind this kind of business is the so-called network effect. Right? It's a phenomenon whereby a good or service becomes actually more valuable as more people start to use it. Right? So in the case of VOCC, if it's able to attract more people to visit its site and purchase sound from VOCC, this will in turn attract more sellers to post different new sound items on VOCC, which will in turn again attract more buyers to the site, so on and so forth. So this will actually create a virtuous cycle, and which will lead to a sustainable business model. Now the challenge here though is to get to so-called the critical mass quickly, right? That is to accumulate enough initial users so that the network effect will take hold. Right? And once the network effect is there, the switch costs for the users will be very high. So they will be very likely to stay with VOCC, and that's how VOCC can effectively build up an entry barrier for its competitors.
So legislation has been enhanced to protect voice and sound trademarking, but many Chinese companies are already used to free access to the sound industry. Are the markets and businesses ready to embrace paying and commercializing for sound?